Hey, I'm Ivan. Welcome back to my little corner of the internet, Ivan Outdoors. If you found me on YouTube or if you found me on the podcast, that's great. There are some visuals that go along with this, so hopefully you tune in on YouTube and check those out. I'm talking with a guy named Lucas. He's got a YouTube channel called Trilordy. He tends to paddle uphill. Most of us go downhill. I thought it'd be a fun conversation. And he's got kids, I've got kids. We're both just two jamokes with boats, conversating, trying to get out more. So I've never met him. Hope you enjoy this. So, hey, good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Sorry about last time. My life's a goat rope.
And I understand.
Yeah. You just had a kid?
Yep. Yep, little
Congratulations.
girl. You
His
said what?
first?
Yep, my
Congratulations.
first one. Thank you.
Wow. Well, cheers to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're going to be busier than a one-legged man in a kicking contest. Yeah. I have two, and one is 5 and one is 14.
Nice.
Year old girl. And yeah, I don't know. That's the one I worry about right now. The other one just tap dances on my head all night. So yeah, the 5-year-old's a boy, so he's just spun up all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Does he ever go in the water with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And he totally would more if I think if his mom would let him. I'm way more comfortable with just, grabbing him and he can't swim, of course. So
Got you.
and she's worried about rapids and stuff out here, and that's legit. That's legit worry.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he's been out on the paddleboard and on my pack raft and in my canoe.
Nice.
And, but mellow stuff, just flat water stuff. And
Yeah,
he loves it, man. It's great.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I was talking to Cliff Jacobson, who's this. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's this kind of famous canoeist. Have you heard of Cliff Jacobson?
The name sounds really familiar.
Yeah, so he was telling me his philosophy on it is that kids either have the gene or they don't. And it's like the gene of love for the outdoors, or the gene of tolerance, or the gene of hatred.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And you can only move the gene one octave one way kind of thing. So
Yeah,
if they hate it, they might tolerate it. If they like it, they could love it. And if they love it, they could, become fanatical about it.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say my buddy Derek, who we got this local thing, this business he runs. It's called SUPs, and basically we kind of do intro to whitewater paddleboarding.
okay.
And he's got 4 kids, and one of the boys really took to it and loves board sports. He loves snowboarding and paddleboarding.
Yeah.
But one of the other ones is the complete opposite. Yeah, he kind of hates it. So I definitely can see what you're saying there.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask him, like, how far do you push it? And you're going to ask yourself this sooner than you think
Yeah,
is, how far can I push him up to that line before driving him away in the long run?
right.
And I like with Sven, he's easy right now. He's just gung ho. As long as he has a good time, it's all good.
Nice.
And my daughter, on the other hand, it's like, I don't want to encourage her too much or push her too much. She can paddle, she's not bad.
Yeah,
She could probably handle class twos, no problem.
nice.
I don't want to like drive her away. So
Yeah.
you got to find that line.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. When did you start paddling?
About 2010, 2011, I got into kayaking first, and I've pretty much done like almost everything since then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my weapon of choice now is anything single blade. Really, I really lean heavy on stand up, and I love the canoe as well. Like the canoe though, mainly for whitewater. The stand up, I love racing, love whitewater on the stand up, love exploring. But the thing that kind of turns me away some of the times with canoeing when I'm, going somewhere different is the whole self-rescue part about canoeing.
Yeah.
Because in open water it can be extremely hard. And I've had a couple buddies that's got, bit a little bit by it. So
Yeah, canoe's a different animal, you know.
oh yeah.
I mean, it's one of those pieces of equipment that I have the utmost respect for, especially someone who can maneuver it well, especially something like a tripping canoe.
Yeah.
Because that's like driving a bus
Oh yeah.
down an alley sideways, it's just, your anticipation. And if you dump, man, what a freaking yard sale it's going to be. So, yeah. Have you practiced any open water self rescues in a canoe?
Yeah, but it's been like my dagger reflection. And
Yeah.
as far as like the boat that I race when I'm racing canoes, I've got a GRB Classic XL. Are you familiar with that boat?
No, I don't know too many canoes by name.
So it's a carbon fiber 17-foot canoe. It's about as close as you could get to like, I guess you could say it's as close as you could get almost to like a high performance kind of race canoe without it being like a marathon spec canoe.
Okay.
I mean, there's others out there as well, like a lot of people like to use the Advantage, the Winona Advantage for stock canoe racing. And yeah, those boats, you can't really get back in them. Like if you swamp that boat out in the middle of the lake, you can't get back in it. You're going to have to swim it to the side. So that's one of the things that's kind of sketchy about those boats. But now in my Dagger, the Royal X boat, and a couple of my other whitewater boats, yeah, they're pretty easy to, flip back over, bail as much water out as you can, and then almost jump in it like how you would do a kayak. I mean, not a kayak, a SUP, just kind of jump over the side of it and throw your legs in.
Right. Okay. But you have big float bags in those, though, right?
Yeah, that's why I really like to run float bags. If I'm running like open water stuff, or definitely in rapids. Now, every now and then when I go paddle with my buddy down in Columbia and we go paddle in the swamps, a lot of times we don't run float bags in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that picture of you in the swamp recently on your Instagram. Where was that? That
was it was one of the sections in Congaree National Park.
Okay, where is that?
So Congaree National Park is kind of in between Columbia, South Carolina, and the coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it looked pretty neat. How far back in there can you go?
Oh, I'd have to ask Scott. It's huge. And that time we went, that was actually last year. It was after a ton of rain, and it was insane to see because everything's so flat there.
Yeah.
When it flooded, there was just water everywhere. And so like you could get lost in there because it was just like as far as you could see, just water and trees. And I mean, it was crazy. But where the Saluda, well, they call it the Congaree once it merges with the Broad. But the Saluda, where it runs through there was actually some current. And so that's kind of how you knew where you were at, because there was just a ton of current blowing through because of how high everything was. But once you got like out of the moving current, it was just, expansive. It was insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Did you paddle any of the tailwaters of Helene?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I assume you didn't go down it when it was full throttle.
Nah, I wanted to, because I don't know if you've seen the C1 Ducky that I built. It's like it's one of the NRS, I think it's Outlaw 2 that I've modified and set it up for kneeling. So, yeah, I was itching to get that thing out, but the big problem was I think we didn't have power for like 14 days then or something like that. So like paddling wasn't too high.
It's not high on your priority back then, but yeah. So were you able to make it out though as the flood subsided?
Yeah, so I think I didn't get out that weekend because it hit on a Friday. And I think I got out that next Saturday.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, that's pretty quick.
Yeah, and it was weird because there's a few rivers that it actually changed. Like it moved big rocks and stuff around, and even some of the local stuff. And I don't know if you've ever heard of like the Green River Narrows, super famous river in the southeast.
Uh-huh.
It's class 4 or 5. That river got completely changed, and there's a few others that got changed dramatically. And I mean, there's iconic rapids that basically got destroyed, but there's a few other rivers that didn't really change at all. It was really weird.
Yeah, that was an incredible flood. Was your house okay?
Yeah, because basically so Columbia didn't really get hit super bad, and it's almost like it was coming around like a curveball, and it hit the upstate pretty bad, but mainly here it was the wind knocked a whole bunch of trees out. I think they said like 90% of the upstate didn't have power or something like that.
Yeah.
But North Carolina was who got hit with all that water and flooding. I mean, we got a good bit, but it wasn't like the rivers and stuff I run around here. They got pretty high, but it wasn't anything that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Now, North Carolina, they hit like 1,000-year flood up there, but it was because they already was getting a ton of rain before the storm ever even made it up that way.
Yeah. Wow. I'm personally a believer in man-made climate change, or at least man-exacerbated climate change.
Yeah.
But, I spent a lot of time in the Arctic, and
really?
Yeah, and you can see it up there. It's happening really fast. It's really fast up there. Yeah, I used to, that's a whole nother story. I used to have a career in Alaska, so.
Dang.
Well, cool. You've been putting out a lot lately.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I try to put out at least one video a week.
Yeah, that's what they say you have to do. And yeah, you've been getting after it. I've been jealous. I've had a lot of work and stuff going on, and I'm just like, getting saddled. I've managed to get my one paddle a month in.
Nice.
Or better in the last 15 months. But this month is going to be tough because it's packed.
Right.
Family stuff, If you don't put something on the calendar, your old lady will.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, it's true. She's good. She hasn't denied me any trips yet, so she's supportive. But sometimes she's like, because our 5-year-old, he's tap dancing on her head most of the time.
Now, does your wife do any paddling?
Oh man, this is a good story. She's a trooper. It's hard to remind yourself when you come from a whitewater background, like if you learned in whitewater like I did, and I'm not a great whitewater paddler by any means. I'm class 3 plus, solidly in that realm.
Yeah.
So, I can do some of the more iconic runs in Colorado, like Browns Canyon.
Nice.
And I can also screw those up. So, and it's hard to remind myself that not everybody, that's not what they think of when they think of, I like to be on the water,
Yeah.
You like the outdoors? I love the outdoors, love to be on the water. And they're not thinking Browns Canyon, it looks neat, but when they get dumped and feel like they nearly drowned, it's freaking scary,
Yeah.
especially to someone who's not gradually worked into that, like you
Right.
probably have or I have.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it wasn't my first time rafting with her, but it was like maybe the third time, and it was a bit of a party. I mean, I had like 5 people in my raft as a paddle boat, and I'm sitting in the back talking to my friend and shooting the shit, and I look up and we're about to slam into a rock sideways. That was just had the pillow over it, and I wasn't paying attention. I was dicking the dog, and it was like 3,000 CFS. It was definitely high water, and it we hit it. It sort of tacos, and the dog and one or two other people stay in the boat, and everybody is just a yard sale. Myself. And I get back in, but she floated the longest, and my buddy on another raft reached down and hand to God at her, and just ripped her out. And
Yeah.
I wish I had caught that on film because that was cool. He's got like retard strength. I should probably cut that out, but I mean he's just like just plunk this 140-pound girl out of the water with one arm. It was impressive to see, but it kind of scarred her. And
Yeah.
so moral of the story is that I went too fast too soon with someone who's not really a paddler and doesn't really understand whitewater and the dynamics of it and how safe you are, or when is there danger, when to panic.
Yeah.
And so we've been working back ever since. So baby steps to the elevator, and she doesn't have a problem with me going out there, but getting her out on whitewater runs is probably not going to happen for a while. So that sucks.
Yeah.
Because I live in Colorado.
Yeah, y'all got some awesome rivers out
I,
there.
I mean, I'm like, there's no run that you can avoid whitewater unless you go east of Denver on the Platte, which I think I'm one of the only people that does that.
Really?
Nasty. Yeah, the Platte is that's a whole nother side subject. But yeah, I mean, you gotta paddle whitewater at some point. So
Yeah.
even just a little. So don't do that to your wife.
No, I got her started when we were actually dating, and she's done a good bit. She actually done her first. Well, I got her into whitewater in a kayak,
Mm-hmm.
but she actually done her first race last year at one of the local ones in her kayak.
Okay. Cool. Wow, she raced. That's neat. That's a good feeling. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay if Margie doesn't want to do whitewater. We all need our time alone sometimes anyways. So that's okay. There's plenty of flat water out there. I like doing both.
Yeah, me too. And my wife, she mainly does flat water, but she's done a little bit of whitewater. It's probably been about 2 years or so since she's done some whitewater, but I got her in some in the C1 Ducky because it's the tandem, so I had her out in the front.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways. Um, so yeah, have you thought about how you're gonna continue with your escapades now that you've got a baby on the ground?
So a lot of times she'll do stuff with her mom, especially on the weekend. So
How old is she?
she's a month.
Oh,
Well, actually, she'll be 5 weeks tomorrow.
so she's tiny.
Yeah.
She's in a carry-all still.
Yeah. So I usually get out early Saturday or whatever, and I don't, depending on what I've got going on, like if I'm training or really trying to film something, depends on how long I'm out there. I
Yeah,
went out there earlier today. Well, actually twice.
good for you. I went to a protest today, and that was not what I wanted to do, was go to one of the protests, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where you stand on that, but it's kind of freaking me out a little bit.
Yeah. Everything's crazy, man.
Yeah. So tell me about Attaining, and it looks like a lot of fun. I've done a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit of it. It looks like a really good workout,
Yep.
especially on a sup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How'd you get
Yes.
into that?
So attaining was one of those things. I I really didn't do it seriously or anything. It was mainly like flat water attaining until I seen this guy. I don't know if you ever heard of Bobby Miller.
Mm-mm.
He's a professional kayaker. He was on Team Dagger.
Okay.
And basically he lives on the Potomac or either near it. And
Mm-hmm.
I seen him paddling up those big rapids and stuff on the Potomac, like going. He would attain from like, I forgot, it was just one spot to like this brewery and get like a couple brewskis and throw them in the bag and head back. And I was like, dude, that's cool. And so I started messing around with that. And then I don't know if you've heard of canoe poling before, have you?
Oh,
It's
canoe polling. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was watching a couple things on that. So like the main guides doing it and stuff like, and it kind of gave me some ideas. And I was like, if I can start attaining up these rapids, like, because I do a lot of paddling and stuff by myself, which I don't recommend, unless you're experienced and you've done it for years and you're
Yeah.
proficient with self rescue and swiftwater rescue and everything like that. But because I train a lot by myself, I was like, I wouldn't mind being able to run like some easy class 1, 2 rapids and stuff by myself. And that's kind of how I got into that attaining. Because I was like, I can self shuttle these runs, like some of this local stuff, and get a great workout for racing and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
it really helps with being able to put power down and sprint and stuff like that, and being able to hold power for longer than you normally would, just because it builds those muscles up.
Right. Right. Okay. Like, what are those like? I have not. The only race I've done is a total cluster of a race here in Colorado. But that's, anyways. What do you sup or canoe?
So, sup, canoe, outrigger canoe. Are you familiar with
Yeah.
those?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
those
was
are cool.
cool.
They're super hard to find in the Southeast, and usually, if you find one, people want like $1 million for it.
Yeah.
and it's pretty much it, just sup, canoe, and outrigger.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly flat water races. I've done a few whitewater races. The whitewater races aren't as common as
Yeah.
the flat water races are. I'm wanting to get into some of the more endurance side of it because I
Yeah.
race mountain bikes as well, and I'm wanting to do some of the longer stuff like the Chattajack is one that's super big in in the Southeast. Like people come from Canada and race that, but it's
I've never heard of that race. The
yes,
Chatterjack.
yep. It starts at the Chattanooga Aquarium and goes all the way to, I think it's the Nickajack Dam in Tennessee. It's like 32 miles or something like that.
Okay. All right. I mean, I've heard of like the MR340. You ever have ambition to doing that?
Yeah, so once I get a couple laps on the Chatterjack, I'm wanting to step up to something like that.
Yeah. All right. All right. That's cool. Yeah, I've thought about getting into racing a little bit, just for the exercise, but then I realized like I don't have the time to just paddle enough for exercise right now. Like I'm a fresh off the couch once a month dude.
Yeah.
So, but I'm definitely into tripping and doing longer trips. But the MR340 sounds cool, and the was the Alabama 650.
Yep, that's another one.
Yeah, that's a big one. The Texas Water Safari.
Yep.
Yeah, that one sounds awesome. Yeah, and then there's a couple up on the Yukon.
Yep, the 1000.
The 1000. I think there's another one. There's
I
a
didn't know that.
Yeah, there's two. I think one is the Yukon 1000. I want to say it's the Yukon 440, but I think that's actually a snowmobile race that I'm getting
Okay.
used. I got into paddling because of my time in Alaska. I mean, I started paddling when I was a kid, just like in our little pond in our canoe, but I wouldn't call myself a paddler back then. But once I got started working in Alaska, I started with this idea like I want to paddle and I want to do the whole Yukon source to sea. And
Nice.
it has not happened. I mean, I'm obviously there's been lots of people that have done it, but that's kind of what started this long drawn out journey.
Nice.
Yeah. So we'll see. I definitely want to get up there and do the Yukon. I would like to do a source to sea at some point soon.
That'd be epic.
Yeah. I'm kind of trying to do the Platte River source to sea, but piece it together because again, time
Yeah.
and work, family. So I'm trying to just fill in, kind of do a fill in all the sections, even the ones that aren't run, which are pretty sketch. So
So why are those sections sketchy? They full of like a whole bunch of wood and strainers and stuff.
I mean, you've got your basic benzene gonorrhea that you could catch going through
Gotcha. So yeah, there's a couple
you got your
rivers
gonosypha
like that.
herpes and your vagosyphilitis that any of them could take you out. Plus there's needles and garbage and low head dams galore. So that's what I mean by they're just kind of sketch. It's not like Whitewater. I mean, the dams, of course, there are some rapids, but it's just not been done that much.
Yeah.
And then there's trespassing, the threat of trespassing, and people that have never seen people paddle the Platte River across their land are probably going to have a conniption fit.
Yeah, there's a couple rivers around here like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Access is it's a whole nother story, big issue. But yeah, that's why the Platte is, in water. Like a lot of people, if you ask them, hey, if you call someone up out in Nebraska, hey, how's
Yeah.
the river? Can I paddle it? And there's no boat stores out there. There's no tube rentals or very few tube rentals, if any.
Yeah.
No, there's no paddlers that you can just call up and say, "Hey, can I paddle my sup or a canoe? What can I paddle down there?" They're all just
There,
it's unrunnable, because they can see all the sandbars and stuff.
are there any gauges on it on that river?
There are a few gauges, but again, it flattens out according to its name, the Platte, and
Yeah.
it gets pretty thin in places, which again brings up the trespass thing.
Yeah.
In Colorado, if you touch the stream bed, you're in violation of trespass.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's compare. Let's compare access for paddlers. So you're in wait, what state are you in again?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, that's right. What can you touch the bank in South Carolina on private?
So to my knowledge, and the common thing I've heard is you're okay as long as you're below the high water mark. But it's like one of my buddies says all the time. Like, even if you are right, whoever has the shotgun pointed is the one that's right. So
Yeah. So in Colorado, if you touch the bank or the stream bed with your paddle or your boat or your person, you have committed trespass.
dang.
Only it's only a $300 misdemeanor. So in my mind, if it could be justified as just the cost of doing business, so to speak. You
Yeah.
dice. But you don't want to make a bad name for other paddlers because we're all
Right.
trying to get more access too. So I lean towards the militant side of the spectrum when it comes to public access to public assets.
Yeah.
So it's not always easy for me to keep my mouth shut in the face of a landowner. So I just try to avoid that situation as best as I can.
Yeah, that's the best thing you can do.
Just keep paddling. No eye,
Yep.
no eye contact. Be mute, deaf and dumb. So yeah, that's the way it should be, is high water mark. That's the way most states are, but Colorado is really asinine in that regard. In fact, there's a film coming out called Common Waters in
Okay.
the fall of 2025 that deals with just that issue, is the fact that, these are, especially in Colorado, like these are such public assets. And
Yeah.
so many people make their livelihood off of our rivers. For landowners to lay this claim to the stream bed, especially in cases of safety,
Yeah.
it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense at all. And
Yeah.
there's been a court case here about a guy who, he was wade fishing up the Arkansas River, and some
Okay.
lady started throwing rocks from above a big bank at him. And he's like in his 80s, some old guy, but
Yeah.
for 70s anyways. So anyways, that went to court and we lost.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the way it stands in Colorado right now is that there's no law that says yes, you can touch the bank, or no, you cannot. It is based on a opinion that was rendered in the 60s or the 70s, that we can float through the land as long as we don't touch it. That was the opinion by, I guess, the Attorney General of Colorado at the time.
Okay.
But he wants to challenge it because there's sort of a détente between landowner and recreation movements. Because everybody's worried about whether or not it could shift one way or the other completely.
Yeah.
Right. So they could lose their right to bar us from the river, and we could lose our right to paddle through their property even. Right.
That's crazy.
That would shut down major portions of lots of recreational rivers and streams.
That's insane.
Right.
Yeah.
Just intuitively, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Now I know one of my buddies I paddle canoes with, he lives in Georgia, and he was telling me about this section that I paddled one time with him. It was up in the mountains of Georgia. And he was saying, like, back in the day, it was kind of a similar situation where you couldn't, like, landowners basically, like, they almost like own parts of the river as well that you couldn't paddle. So like if their land touched that, like you couldn't paddle through that section. And it wasn't I guess it wasn't until like a couple years or so ago where that kind of changed.
Huh. I think it was Georgia. It's either Georgia or Alabama. There is, I think, a bill in the state legislature that is, I think it's written to bar people from accessing rivers along public right-of-ways such as roads.
Yeah, they're talking about doing that in North Carolina.
Really? You got to fight that.
That's I think one of the things that brought that on, though, was it was actually part to do with Helene. So the short version of it is, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Nullichucky Gorge. So the Nullichucky Gorge, I paddled it once. It's like a class 3 plus, maybe 4 run, depending on the level or whatever. They commercially raft it. Super nice. It's really secluded. But it flows from, I think it's Tennessee into North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, there's 2 railroad tracks. Well, at the very top, there's just one. But through the most of the gorge, there's railroad tracks on either side of it. And when Helene came through, it got so high, it took out the train bridge, and it took out like a lot of the railway. And I know they use it for transporting coal and a whole bunch of other stuff. But where the issue happened is right as soon as I guess the water started subsiding, I think it's not, it might have been CSX, but don't quote me on that.
Uh-huh.
They started rebuilding the railway, which, I mean, you got to get it back open. But the problem that a lot of the paddlers and other people that use the gorge had was they was dredging out the river to get rock from the river to build up the railroad. And then, like, in the area, I think it's Irwin, Tennessee, there was a park, and there's not really hardly anything in that area or whatever. That was like the only park there, and a ton of people use it and stuff. And CSX started staging equipment and stuff there. Well, it was a nice park, and they just went through and just leveled the whole thing just to give them a place to kind of stage all their stuff. Wow. Yeah, they've been destroying that riverbed. And I mean, you can look it up and see pictures and videos of it on YouTube. Like a lot of the guys I sup with, there's a big rafting outfit out there. Oh, USA Rafts, and it's owned. I think it's owned by Matt Moses, and he's a big time supper and's done like a ton of stuff for the sup community. And so that was one of their training runs that they done was the Nullichucky, and they've been going through there, you know, documenting everything that CSX has been doing. But the shortened version of it is, I don't know if it's the state or that county was going against the railroad, and they've been battling and stuff about that, and that's kind of what brought up that whole thing about the right of way.
Yeah, it's it feels like there's definitely a little bit of a push in certain areas like Colorado, now Georgia, and now North Carolina, that, you know, it feels like there's how should I phrase this? It's like landowners are taking advantage of the climate that is maybe pro landowner,
Yeah,
a lot of places, and trying to use that to shut down access.
yeah, I definitely see that.
Yeah, there's another case that happened up in Wyoming. I don't know if you're familiar with how the land was sold in the western United States to the railroads. They
No.
they checkerboarded it, right? So they ran the Cartesian grid out, and they just said every other section is, we can sell it to the railroad at dirt cheap prices, and then the state,
Okay.
the government would retain the alternate sections. So it became a checkerboard. And what's that's done is allow landowners, ranchers primarily, to control huge chunks of public land and not allow anybody into them, because you can't cross on a corner, because technically your body, listen to this, Assen, this is totally ridiculous, because your body will technically cross over the landowner's land if you even hit that corner just dead nuts, like a, you know, like a pinpoint on a gnat's ass. If you just hit it,
Yeah,
you're still in violation of trespass,
that's insane.
right?
Yeah.
And they're taking public land out of public access for free. They're not paying taxes on that land, but they have total control over it for grazing, hunting, and they're selling hunts. They're selling hunts that are in the tens of thousands of dollars.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think a bull elk hunt is probably running $15,000 to $20,000.
Dang.
Right? So they sell out to some guy back east. He comes out and they say, "Hey, we have 10,000 acres of private land that we control." But it's really more like 5,000,
Yeah.
but they control another 5,000 in public land. So anyways, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is an organization that has been fighting a case that came up, and they won in the appellate court. So I guess the next step is for them to appeal it to the Supreme Court. Hopefully they don't do that. But
Yeah.
they won twice in court now, and this keeps moving up. And the landowners, which are essentially billionaires, millionaires, and billionaires, just to buy one of these ranches, you've got to be in the 1% of 1%.
Yeah.
So they're fighting it, but they've won for now. You can cross on a corner, and I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So yeah, it opens up a lot of land to go play around on. Yeah, I think it'd be kind of fun to do a trip where you start out someplace and then just cut through some guy's ranch corner to corner and just camp and make a 2 day backpacking or pack rafting trip out of it.
Yeah.
That would be fun. So we'll squirrel that one away in the bank.
And then I've got a couple of guys that I know that's older that used to be in the paddling scene and stuff, and they can't get out as much. And they're like, "Yeah, I like watching your videos and stuff. 'Cause it's kind of almost like being out there." And
That's what I kind of envision.
Yeah, and I think it's cool too to do like what do they call that? Where if you're planning a trip to go somewhere, you can kind of watch it and give you an idea of what to expect at a certain level.
I've appreciated that a lot, and from other people's videos, I've done a lot of research just typing in a river and just seeing like what does it look like, what am I looking at? And so that's super helpful.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm hoping at least I can add is like some beta to it. I always get almost I'm on like a mental conundrum over it because I don't want to tell people where I'm going necessarily.
Yeah.
But then again, you hear about like, public lands are going up for sale for logging, etc. They're really going anti lately. It seems like this administration is kind of anti public lands or not anti, but pro development, across the board.
Yeah.
But if people don't know about it, they don't necessarily care about it.
Exactly.
So how and influencers, people telling people about places and then they get ruined. I'm not an influencer, obviously, but how I'm just like, fuck it. I'm just gonna do my thing. I mean, and it's so hard to do what we do anyways,
Yeah.
I mean, even just getting the motivation to go out and paddle one day in the winter. Most people are going to be like, whoa, man, this couch is just sucking me in. Like, it's cold. It takes a lot. So,
and that's even like other paddlers. Like I've got a couple buddies that I sup with, and one of them, me and him done this paddle a couple years ago. We called it the Dead Beaver Run, but we went and ran the green, and it was like stupid cold. There was snow everywhere, and like it's almost like after that kind of ruined him from cold water paddling because now he's like, dude, it's too cold. I'll go back out when it's in the 60s. But yeah, I know a ton of guys that'll take like half the winter off or something like that. And I mean, that's the best time to go because that's when no one's out there and the rivers are running because the ground's frozen. So the ground's saturated and all the water is just going into the rivers.
Right.
So it keeps the levels good.
Yeah. So that's your on season down there.
Yeah, for Whitewater.
Yeah, I've got a couple friends down there. Where are they now? They just moved. Anyways, I'm building up reasons to go down south and go do a little winter jaunt or something.
Yeah, you definitely need to.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting paddling down there. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you do any multi-day stuff?
Not yet. So it's weird. That was the thing that actually kind of got me into paddling was the kind of, well, one of the allures to it. The other was, I don't know if you ever heard of Evan Garcia. He's a professional kayaker. I think I don't remember who he paddled for back in the day, but he was running like I seen a video on YouTube of him running like a whole bunch of stouts back in the day, like the Royal Flush, like these big waterfalls, and that's kind of what got me into it. And I only ever ran like a handful of waterfalls in a kayak, but that was one part of it. But the other part, which I kind of used to get one of my other friends into it, was I wanted to kind of do some multi-day trips and stuff like that. Because one of my other buddies, who I got into kayak, and he was a camper. And I told him, I was like, dude, you could explore so much more if you got in a boat and threw your gear and stuff in there.
Yeah.
But we never ended up doing that. We still talk about doing it to this day, though.
No, you got to try it. I want to do a multi-day SUP trip.
Nice.
And I have not done that yet. I've done my kayaks, canoes, rafts, and stuff, and I love multi-day paddling. But I think on a SUP would be fun.
Yeah.
Lean and mean and quick. Kind of quick. Well, maybe not that quick. My SUP is not fast. Yeah.
What you paddle? What kind of SUP?
It's a Hala.
Nice.
Oh God, what is the brand?
Is it a Redito?
No, it's a Hala Rival Haas is the
Nice.
brand, and it's like 11 feet long, I think, and solid 3.5 feet wide. It's pretty stable, which is good because Huck is usually with me, and that's 80 pounds live load.
Yeah, that's a good board for tripping and exploring.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good board. It can carry a lot. It's stable. It can do some little whitewater. I've paddled the Upper Colorado, which is class 2 plus in some cases.
Nice.
Once in a while it'll be a 3. And I've done that standing up the whole way.
Nice.
And so yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I'm like, all right, I can stay upright. I did fall off a couple times, of course, but I never paddle on my knees. No, that's not true. Sometimes I do. It does drive me nuts though. Sometimes when I see people like just with the paddle fully extended, just sitting on the board, and I'm just like, oh, what's gonna happen? You're just gonna fall in the water. What are you afraid of? You're on a lake.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a guy yesterday about that. I was explaining to him about why it's so horrible to do that. I was like, most people do it because they get on the board, they probably get on the board the first time, try to stand up and fall off, and then they start paddling on their knees. And I'm like, just get on the board, go to an area that's not super deep, but it's not, it's still deep enough to where you're not going to fall and hit your head.
Yeah.
Get used to the board. Get used to trying to stand on it. Get used to bracing, seeing what that feels like. And then once you get used to that, start pushing the distance out. Push it out a little more every time versus, like I said, just getting on their knees and then they're like, oh, because I fall off this board. So they get on their knees and they just paddle around like that. And it teaches bad technique for one thing.
I know. And it's not comfortable.
No.
It's my knee, I've done it before, especially in some whitewater or something, or I got to kneel to hold on to my kid.
Right.
But, my knees hurt, I'm old. I'm like almost 50. I need to stand up. I don't want to be on my knees.
Yeah, I told him, I was like, if you want to paddle on your knees, get a canoe.
Yeah, right.
Whitewater canoe.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well,
Dad?
Yes?
I just got this right.
I heard him.
I just got
Jesus. Careful. That is because there's an echo in this room. This is Sven. You want to say hi?
Hey.
I got soccer ball on my cheek because I was at a golf course and there was Easter egg and there was face paint there and I got a soccer ball face paint on my cheek. Yes, it's staying on really good. staying on really good. Yes, it's staying on really good.
All right. Hey. All right, that's enough. Hey. You're knocking over my other camera.
Get over
Jesus.
camera.
Yes. This is what you got to look forward to.
Oh yeah.
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 This is the only hugs I get.
Phew. I think sick.
So it still must be pretty cool your way, it looks like.
What's that?
I said, so the weather must still be pretty cool your way then.
It has been the last few days. Yeah, it snowed here. A little spring snow. Huck, get out of here. Move. Yeah, and I'm in my garage because that's the only place I can go and do this. And
And this is
yeah, because otherwise this guy's in the house.
where stuff is.
Yep. This is where all the camping stuff is.
Yeah, and this is where all the other things
Makes
are.
a good backdrop for an outdoor dumbass podcast.
And
Yeah.
I got event, and I see you guys adventure boots.
Jesus, how am I going to edit this out?
Yeah, maybe next time. I don't know if I ever told you. I build SUPs and stuff too. Whitewater.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can take me on a tour of your virtual tour of your shop.
Yeah, the shop's more or less a wood shop that I build boards at and stuff from time to time. Like I do a little bit of wood paddles and stuff. That one of the ones hanging back there is a race paddle I built a couple of years ago. I mean, it's super heavy, and I mean you cut a tree in half with it, but
Yeah.
But it puts out a ton of power and it doesn't bend too much.
Yeah, that's cool. Can we see that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's cedar and purple heart with a pine shaft that's got layers of cedar in it as well, because the pine doesn't flex as much as the cedar does, and it makes it a little stiffer. And then I think the handle is made out of palm wood.
Okay. That's beautiful.
Appreciate it.
So you laminated that up and shaped it. I've always wanted to make my own paddle. It seems like a fun winter project.
Oh yeah, I think I've got a video on YouTube of making one. The hardest part is to, what's the proper way? It's not the feather of it, but to foil a paddle or like to foil a fin. That's probably the hardest part of it. My buddy that actually taught me, he believes in using jigs for everything. I mean, that's the best way to do it and make it, really repeatable. But he actually made a jig to foil his paddles.
My ball got fire.
Great.
It's a soccer ball. It's a soccer ball. Is it a soccer ball?
We've established that. All right, John.
All right. Take it easy.
Take it easy. We'll do this again soon.
All right. Just let me know when.
I will. Yeah. I'll be on time next time. I still feel like a dummy for that. I'm just like, God.
That's good.
Yeah. Thanks for understanding.
All right.
All right, Trilordy. That was interesting. It was fun. I was happy to meet that dude. Check out his YouTube channel. The links will be down below, along with anything else that's relevant or inane. As always, find a good conservation organization and donate to them. My favorites are also linked down below. If you enjoyed this, hit the like, love, barf button or whatever buttons you have on your platform. And yeah, let's spread this around like RFK's spreading smallpox. Also, call your reps and let them know to protect public lands and waters for generations to come. I have a feeling that they're going to be under immense pressure for extraction in the near future. All right, until next time, paddle safe, beat it.